Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Rachel Ehrenfeld, it's very special to have her here because about 4 years ago, Dr. Rachel, yes, you worked very hard for it.
No, actually.
About 4 years ago, just when our organization was just starting, what I call a worldwide conference call, where she was just, her book, I think your book had just come out?
No, I was sued in Britain.
Oh, yeah, it was the libel tourism lawsuit, and it was very interesting, and it is available actually still on audio on the website if anybody wants to hear what we discussed 4 years ago on this. But
this is the book.
So, Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld is the director of the American Center for Democracy and the Economic Warfare Institute. She will be discussing the growing security threats posed to the United States by the growing cooperation of Islamic terror organizations with Latin American drug cartels, compounded by our porous borders, especially in the Southwest. There is a certain amount of false comfort that we feel because we think that terrorism is over there. And, well, it's here now, too, and it's right here in our backyard. And so when we think of Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, they're not just over there, they're here. And they're working with other people that aren't so good. Dr. Ehrenfeld has pioneered the studies on narco-terrorism and terror financing. Her latest book, Funding Evil, How Terrorism is Financed and How to Stop It, led in 2008 to the passage of Rachel's Law in New York State and similar laws in 7 states, including California, and the Speech Act, which was signed into law in 2010. The law, which was initiated by Dr. Ehrenfeld, limits the enforcement of foreign libel judgments on American writers and publishers in print and on the internet. It was just passed by Congress too, right?
August 2010. July 2010, the president finally signed it in August.
I just want to say that these laws that are important, so important, and affect all of us, are only here, or have only passed because of Rachel's extraordinary perseverance, and I don't think anybody else would have gone through to the point of winning that she did, and for that we must all thank her. And now I'm going to hand it to you. And do you feel like if you can't hear her back there, will you?
Yeah, I guess I gotta use it because the room it's long. So, do you hear me without it? Okay. Do you hear me better?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much, Doris, for hosting this event. Thank you, Clark, everybody that came. I'm glad to be here since it was a very interesting really service what Doris did in order to help with at the time with the passage of Rachel's Law in New York. But that's now behind us. We need still to work on legal issues because we are facing a lot of silencing, if you want, by the media and by the Muslim organizations who sue right and left. But that's for another time. I came here to talk about what's happening here in California. It's actually happening everywhere, but you probably feel it more in California, in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, the southern border. The growing penetration or the growing presence of Mexican gangs everywhere. You can see them in Colorado too, actually, or in New Jersey, or in Larchmont, New York. But there are still more Spanish-speaking populations here and neighborhoods, and they kind of melt better into the neighborhood. How this whole thing started and you have more violence, and you have more actually growing corruption. But we'll get there. The narco-terrorism is the use of drugs for political purposes. For many years, even today, even in the U.S. law enforcement, certainly in this administration, there is a trend to separate between drug trafficking and terrorism. Now, it's only the crimes, the violence, the killing of villages, if you want, of hundreds of people, laundering money, trafficking in arms, creating chaos and violence. It's defined as a criminal issue, and if they don't wear an ID or a tag saying I'm Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah, then okay, so you're a drug trafficker, if we caught you with drugs, actually. This distinction is artificial. Terrorists are using every available mean to them from the underworld. The marriage between drug trafficking and between terrorists is really a marriage from heaven, if you want, or from hell. They are serving each other. The terrorists who need fake IDs, who need arms, who need money, where are they going? And what are they engaging to? There is a big competition in what kind of criminal activities each organization or gangs are engaged in. Okay, so some specialize only in cocaine trafficking, but very often they are engaged in arms trafficking. In Latin America, the whole story started. Mexico had been trafficking drugs for a long time. That's how Fidel Castro had money in order to buy his ship, so he can take a ship with arms back to Cuba and start the revolution. And the drugs for hashish, cannabis from Mexico, marijuana from Mexico. So he understood the value of drugs then in order to advance revolutions. He understood it so well that when cocaine became, there were small gangs in Colombia that were engaged in the 60s, 70s. America was going through its own little revolution. In the 60s, the drug consumption here increased, and so in Latin America they started, especially in Colombia, to engage more in cultivation of cannabis and cocaine. The Fidel Castro's head of intelligence, who was dubbed Barbarossa, he had a big red beard, was sent to Bogota, and he got together the biggest thugs from the biggest organized groups that were trafficking in drugs in Colombia, and he offered them a deal. He said, you work together. We will help you shipping drugs from Colombia and protect you with our navy. So you can come to our territorial water, and from there we will help you take boats, speedboats, and go to Miami, or shipping boats or whatever. In return, we want you to smuggle arms back, to take arms back from Cuba to Nicaragua and to El Salvador, because Fidel was very engaged in having some revolutions in Latin America. That's how actually the first drug cartels in Colombia got organized. This was very interesting. When Raúl went to the Sandinistas, just were organizing, Raúl went to encourage them and give some pep talks. And he gave them a talk where he said that they should engage in drug trafficking to the United States. And there was some very religious Marxists who said, well, this is crime, this is revolution, is different. And he said, well, no, this is the best weapon that you can use against the enemy. Why? A, it's cash anywhere you go. It's money. You can take it, you sell it anywhere, and you have money. It's also a business that creates more business, because people who take drugs and encourage it, give it to their friends, and you have more people actually to buy what you are selling. In addition to giving you money, it is also helping to erode the moral fiber and the health of the targeted country, of the enemy. And then, to top it, you can take the photographs of those degenerated drug addicts who are all laying around and really in terrible shape, and use them in order to recruit people to your cause, to show that this is the enemy. So, this is somebody that should really not be around. This is nobody. It's interesting that Raoul had actually gave the speech, and I had the transcript from the speech and the recording, which I used in my first book, Narco-Terrorism. The Soviet Military Encyclopedia, which was where Raoul and Fidel, all of them had actually studied, had some instructions how to defeat the enemy in so-called peacetime. Target enemy. So you don't declare war on the country, but you want to weaken it, to destabilize it. And they recommended the use of drugs as one of the best means to do it. Well, since then, a lot of water had run through many rivers. At the time, there was some interest in looking at what Cuba was doing. I guess President Carter probably didn't speak about it when he visited Raoul this week or last week. The drugs had become a major business in the world. It is today, we don't know really how much it is, because it's not something that anybody counts. No, they don't pay taxes. You know what? Some of them pay taxes. This is how they launder the money. They pay taxes, they're okay. But no, most of the money is not for taxes. It is estimated to be about $1.5 to $2 trillion. Now, when there are so many trillions being thrown around these days, and maybe it's not very impressive, but it's a big business. With $2 trillion, it's not only the Medellin cartel or the FARC that are engaging in it. And if you look at the Latin American gangs, the FARC and the Shining Path, which everybody thought would have been eliminated, they really don't have any, they didn't start as political parties. Well, the Sendero Luminoso were supposed to promote Mao's agenda, and the FARC were also maybe something on the left. They adopted some kind of ideological cover only after they were in business, because they wanted to legitimize, they wanted to politicize their cause. The drug from Latin America here, then the Mexicans got into the business, and heroin started to be produced in Colombia. The drug cartels from Colombia brought Syrian and Pakistani chemists to teach them how to best purify heroin, opium products to heroin. And they were actually, for quite a while, there teaching the Colombians how to do that. It's a long story. The heroin, there is a difference between heroin that is coming from, the best heroin today, the best quality of heroin is actually from Colombia. I'm not recommending it. The Pakistani is pretty good, and the worst is the Mexican. It's really, it's black cocaine, it's a black heroin, it's not pure, it's really very bad, it has all kind of Mexican things in it, not good. The prices are different, so what I do, every 6 months, something like that, I call the DEA to ask them, well, how much is a gram of cocaine in the street today? What is the purity? So we need to know how much it is sold. So the revenue is fantastic, and to say that it's a $2 trillion is probably not enough. Now, how this is being used? In the Lebanese started moving to Latin America, especially to the tri-border region. First in the Lebanese war, but seriously it was mainly the Christians that had to leave Lebanon. A big community of Muslim Shiite from Lebanon settled in the tri-border region. And it was very strange. They paid a lot of money to Paraguayan officials and to Argentinians in order to be able to settle there. It was very strange. What the hell were they were doing there? These are Muslims, Shiite. The population is Indian, but very Catholic. And they started to immediately to get involved in drug trafficking and in smuggling. What was interesting to me, and I've been following it for many years, that the more they grew, the more powerful they became. Never once, when they went to any of the local drug gangs or drug cartels, and they said, from now on, you are giving us protection money. Nobody tried to fight back. Nobody objected. Everybody paid. Now, these people are very, we read about these horrible, terrible things that the drug cartels have been doing. And if anybody wanted to come and take away anything from them, they were not very friendly. Why would they silently accept somebody completely foreign with a foreign? They are very different than the local people. Coming in and taking part of their turf. And they are not doing anything. They are actually asking for money first. That to me was a very warning sign. These people are so dangerous that even the drug cartels are afraid. The business, though, started to flourish because they got very much involved in providing the local populations also with means to travel to move drugs to Lebanon and to Syria, because the Shiite population in Latin America had very good connections. These were Hezbollah members, and they had very good connections with Syria, with Assad's father. And they actually shipped drugs, cocaine, to Lebanon. At the beginning there was an agreement. They met. Escobar's son went to Cyprus, and the DA actually recorded it. And he met with the head of intelligence, of the Syrian intelligence, and the head of the local Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they decided what kind of deal they are going to have. And this is going back to the 80s. When the Hezbollah got stronger, and Iran got more violent, more determined to bring the 12 Imam, to resurrect the 12 Imam, mullahs in Tehran issued a special fatwa allowing the Muslims to deal in drugs. Because here also there were conservative or Orthodox Muslims who said, well, drugs, this is a crime. How can we do something which is criminal? And it was very interesting, and to compare what they said in the fatwa, it's exactly what Raoul was telling the Sandinistas, and it was exactly what the Soviet military encyclopedia recommended. This is the best way to defeat the enemy. Now, you have here a huge border. The government is really not, I think the Border Patrol has about, in testimonies in Congress, recent testimonies in Congress, they said that in a good day, they control or they patrol about 10% of the border. What about the 90%? Even in the crossing, when people are crossing, there is a huge problem because they don't check everything. There are no ways actually to check everything. They don't want to slow the traffic. The latest murder of the DA agent in Mexico was really telling. Studying this issue, I know that when there was a previous killing before of a custom agent in Mexico, it was during the Reagan administration, and the custom commissioner was William von Raab. He closed the border with Mexico. He closed the border with Mexico and he said, I want the murderers of this agent, and until then the border is not, he didn't advise anybody. He didn't go to Congress, he closed the border. And the Mexicans got the message. What happened now? Well, they are negotiating, maybe they will give, maybe they will find them, they will, things are not improving. The number of drugs are a very big business, and they corrupt a lot. So the agents that are involved in many agents in Border Patrol, Homeland Security, and others, immigration, are involved in many sheriffs in towns in Arizona, and I don't know, in California too. It's very hard to find the information. I asked for FOIA. I turned to the government and I wanted information from Homeland Security on how many numbers of cases they had against corrupt officials here. How many investigations. I just go the runaround. I cannot get any information out. What is necessary to do is to go around, actually go to Arizona, speak with different heads of police, speak with people who live there, who care about it, speak with reporters, and really gather the information. You would think that today there will be a little bit more central information about it. No, there isn't. But there was somebody tried to look into this, and for fiscal year of 2009, there were about 12,500 allegations of corruption of Homeland Security and immigration officers. How many of them were investigated? About 1,000. What happened? What are the results of the investigation? Well, we don't know. Excuse me? I hear from friends who live, from reporters and others whom I keep in touch all the time, that there are areas, for example, in Arizona, where they used to go hiking not far from Tucson, about 20 miles, where they cannot go anymore because the police stops them and said, you cannot go over, you cannot drive further because the Mexicans are there and they will kill you. And this is inside the United States, inside U.S. territory. People are being shot. Again, there is no central reporting on it. It happens in town, in villages, but there is no information, central information, so that we can find out what's going on. A huge problem is that since Hezbollah is very, very active in Latin America, and since Chavez have been, is really doing everything he can in order to bring down the United States, including selling expensive oil to the United States. He's hosting Iranian planes come and go all the time. People come and go. We don't know what's going on because there is not much American representation there anymore. And they are smuggling people. First of all, the Colombian cartels, they have training camps there. They have training camps for others, from Brazil, from Bolivia, from Chile, from Argentina. Argentina is heavily involved in it. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Al-Qaeda, and all the radical Muslim organizations are very, very active in Latin America. And they kind of have more or less a free hand. They are supported by the drug trade, and they have a free access to Mexico. And a wonderful way You pay very little in order to obtain, actually, you pay almost nothing if you are a member. If you need a fake passport to come through, you can buy official Paraguayan passports, Panamanian passports, official. They change your name and you can go. And nobody at the border, even if you are caught, will ask you, well, you don't look like, I don't know, Jose, whatever. You look like, I don't know, Yusuf something. Nobody will ask them anything. If they will not call, if they don't carry anything, nobody will try to convict them for anything either. We don't know how many people are coming legally or illegally across the border. We know that there now is a little bit more concern because some people were caught from Hezbollah coming over to the United States. But it's only Hezbollah. There are big cells and big training camps for Al-Qaeda, for Hezbollah, and for Hamas in Latin America, throughout Latin America, Central America. If you go and you talk to people in Washington, the reaction is, I think if you talk about having terrorists on the moon, the reaction will be much more, we have to do something about it. This is not at your back door, this is coming here. We don't know how many people penetrated, we don't know where they are, and we don't know what they are doing. And this is very troublesome. And the drug trade actually helps them to finance them. The president was just now in Latin America. I guess he gave a press conference about Libya, but he didn't discuss this issue. And as far as we could tell, this was not an issue at all with his conversations. He didn't even discuss the threat of Venezuela. And Venezuela's involvement in drugs is huge. So this is kind of very general description of the problem. There are more problems because, and actually the real problem is that the administration is not doing what it can and it should in order to eliminate the crops of coca, of opium poppies, and of cannabis. The US government had paid, this started with the Reagan administration, for developing pathogens. Pathogens there are all kind of fungus that attacks crops, agricultural crops. Potatoes have fungus, so the whole crop of potatoes goes. Those funguses have been engineered to attack only opium poppy, only coca bushes, and only cannabis. And they are very effective. The US government had used scientists in Kazakhstan in order to conduct the studies. I've been following it. I even went to Kazakhstan to see how it works. And it works fantastically. It eliminates the plant. It does not contaminate, not the soil. It just prevents that specific plant from growing again. That's it. So you can grow tomatoes, you can grow grapes, you can grow wheat, you can grow anything, but either it's coca or opium or... So why aren't the government doing it? The US government is spending on treating drug addicts, taking care of them in prisons of criminals. The cost of crime and the cost of drug addiction in this country is about $500 billion a year. $500 billion a year? It's a huge amount of money. We can eliminate this problem, not to speak of the misery of the people and their families and all the other side effects that we have in society. And the government is doing absolutely nothing. Why not? I've written about it because, for example, American soldiers are being killed in Afghanistan. And nothing is happening. Afghanistan, since the US went into Afghanistan, In 2001, Afghanistan produced 600 tons of opium. Last year they produced close to 9,000. The Americans are there, NATO is there. What the hell is going on? Or Karzai doesn't want to be offended. So we cannot do anything because they wanted to spray. Why do they want to spray? I don't want anybody to spray because it will poison the environment. They are right not to spray, but you have a better tool to do it. Why aren't you doing it? There is too much money involved. And that would take really a very much larger investigation. I've done a lot of investigations, that's what I do, on money, following the money, who funds what and how. It's not, I don't have life insurance and I'm unlikely to get one. There were threats on my life, there was an attempt on my life. But looking into why drug money is being, or why drugs are not being eliminated, I think, I don't think I will be able to do. So I didn't even go there. But I think that it's a question that American people should ask. Because you have crime coming to this country from other countries, and you have this scourge coming here, and it can be solved. There is a solution. The government paid a lot of money. There is a presidential order, actually, to do this. And if somebody is interested, you can go to my website, you can read about it. I've written many articles about it. I cannot write anymore because I'm writing the same thing all over again. But it's there. Why the government is doing nothing about it? You can eliminate a lot of crime, too. Sources of funding for terrorists. This is not the only source for terrorists, but it's a major source. So I would be glad to answer your questions. Yes, please.
What about the prisons and the unions and how, to what extent, and also what's being grown in California?
Wow.
How does that...
California, Tennessee.
Everywhere, huh?
Sure.
And to what extent, in terms quantitatively, you know, and how much money is involved just from this side? How does it all tie?
Oh, well, this all ties a little bit into Soros, into George Soros. So, if we start talking about him, I think... it's interesting. I've written something before. He wanted to have... There was the latest referendum where he was defeated about legalization of drugs in California. Still, I don't know. I know a lot about him, and I'm asked, well, you know, what is his? Why is he doing it? Is he involved in is he earning any money from it? I don't know. I really don't know why, but I know what he's doing, and I've been following it since he started to do it. Until Soros. Until say 1995, if you said to somebody that let's legalize drugs, there was only Bill Buckley who was writing about legalizing drugs, and there were some crazy people. Nobody paid any attention to them. Legalize drugs? That was a no-no. When he started to invest in the United States after he raided the Bank of England successfully and made between $1 to $3 billion overnight, the first involvement that he had in the United States was to create a foundation to legalize drugs and to pay $15 million for a campaign to legalize drugs in the United States. I found it very strange. And I wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal saying, well, here somebody has an organization called Open Society, and whatever it is, and he's advocating for the biggest slavery ever, because drug addiction is the biggest slavery. Why? And he said, well, this is really very interesting, and this was his first political endeavor here. He said, well, we should really watch him. This was in the Wall Street Journal, and I said, we should watch him because with his political clout, with his money and respectability, because he can make so much money, he will be able to change the political landscape in the United States. This was in 1995. I think I was right.
Wow.
And he's been pushing it ever since. Cannabis in this country is growing in many, many places. And the cannabis of today is not the cannabis that grew here in the 60s. So people say, well, legalized drugs, in Holland they legalized drugs, how wonderful it is. In Holland now there are laws, serious laws against drug use, because it really caused so much crime that they realized this is not good. In Switzerland they were distributing heroin and needles to drug addicts, and all European drug addicts and others went to where you couldn't visit, really, Zurich or Geneva or Basel. And everywhere there were drug addicts and needles everywhere. So they decided, well, maybe this is not a very good idea either. By now they realized it is not. Only this country is not doing too much about it. It can be eliminated here too. There is some industrial use for cannabis. But that's a different kind of cannabis.
This is stronger, this one?
This really causes hallucinations, and it's a psychotropic drugs, what they are doing today. This is dangerous stuff, and very addictive.
You mentioned that our government isn't doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you attribute that to? Why do you think?
I think that it's because of money. I know that when I was looking more into drug trafficking issues, I had another book called Evil Money. So I looked into drug money laundering and corruption. And banks in the United States, in the banks in California, actually the banks in California and in Florida had much more cash than they received from Treasury. Like millions of dollars more than they received from Treasury. How can it be? Because they couldn't really, the accounting was kind of off. Money from all over was coming in. So that Florida, by the way, the large parts of Florida were built very nicely with drug money. There is a lot of drug money, especially in economic hardship today. Many more banks, despite all kinds of legal regulations against money laundering and know your customer and whatever, cash is cash, and cash is king. But the government shouldn't be concerned with it. The government should really do what is right, because this is causing a lot of harm. I don't know. I just don't know. Yes, please.
I probably know as much as anyone in here about pharmaceutical weaponization of pharmaceuticals. Actually, I would back. I'm retired LAPD. I've done hundreds of drug crimes investigations. I've done hundreds of arrests. I've written search warrants. I've done these things. I also lived in Central America. I worked at the U.S. Embassy there, and I worked in India at the consulate. So I know a lot about this.
The DEA is really the best.
Well,
was the best.
I would back the history, though. Even before Colombia, you had the Great Britain, the British East India Company cultivating opium in order to import into China, and that resulted in a couple of opium wars, and so the history of weaponized pharmaceuticals is very old, and it enriched a lot of countries.
The Syrians actually had hashish is named after the assassins in Syria. And this is going back to, I don't know, the 5th century, where the local ruler decided he had assassins working for him, and before they went out to do some job, he gave them hashish in order to make them more, I don't know, ecstatic or whatever. So this is why hashish actually got its name. In history, there are many, many stories. This is the political use of it is not new. However, to use it really as a targeted weapon, the British and the Americans, Yale University was built by Jeremiah Yale for money that he made on trafficking, on shipping heroin.
Yeah, a lot of
Opium.
pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I know. So many were. It's not new, but the making it really, it's not weaponizing it, it was for political purposes. The French used it in Indochina, and the French are the only government that I know of that had a government decision to use drugs in order to use it in the war in Indochina against the Vietnamese. And I have actually a copy of it. So, but that's the only government that I know that have done that. But the use really, the explanations and the use for targeting countries like that has really been devised very well by the Soviets, and it's they just took it a few steps further. Yes, please.
Have you heard of cases of any kind of WMD that were brought into the U.S. or went to the training camps in Latin America with the intention of smuggling them up into the U.S.?
There is, as far I don't have the what is it called, the bill of lading from Iran on the ships that actually brought some stuff to Venezuela, or from the planes that flew in from Syria. I would assume that they have everything. There are stories about ballistic missiles. There are all kinds of stories. If I was in the government, I would assume that everything is available to them, and I would be very wary of it, and I would try to do something about it. That's what I would do. Yes, please.
Could you comment? I saw in the paper yesterday, Napolitano had a conference down in Texas, in El Paso, and stated that all the police and whatever on the border said how secure it was and how safe it was, and much more so than any other time.
She's using a different optometrist than I do. Her glasses are pink, mine are not.
That's a good answer.
Yes, please.
Do you have a sense, any sense that the Latin American countries where Hezbollah is operating are worried about that? Do they think America is the only target and that they'll be immune?
They are. They since they don't. They share what they share with them is the how shall we say, the dislike of America, and especially in the places they are operating. America, the United States is not very much liked in Latin America. Has not been for a long time, and it's getting worse. And having more and more, the Muslim population is growing there very quickly. The influence, the anti-American influence is growing very much. Governments are not exactly very sympathetic. The Organization of American States has been acting really not very friendly to the United States. So, and so many governments have been corrupted by drug money that in Latin America that it's something that we are not really looking at.
So we shouldn't look for a whole lot of help from those governments?
No, we don't. Well, why? I don't think that we can rely on anything that is coming from there. Yes, please.
My concern is you're telling everybody about the drug smuggling and that these are terrorists and they're Muslims, right?
Not all of them are Muslims.
Pardon me?
Not all of them are Muslims.
Well, okay, even if there's one, okay? My concern is, what do you know about plans of these groups also doing what they did on 9/11, wanting to blow up a State Department in California or a financial district? Is there anything, because that's going to only be, that's the next step. That's my worry, you know?
I haven't been in any cave lately, so I don't know the exact plans, but...
No, of course.
No, I'm joking. From looking at how Islam, the political Islam has developed since 9/11. 9/11 was really the big shot. This is, okay, we started the war. It started before, but this was the declaration. America is really, America is the big state, and America is the target, but it's a golden goose. And the idea is to take it over. And we can do it by other means. And let's try and do it by other means. And they are doing all kind of other means. This does not mean that they will not use terror when they feel like it, or when they feel that they haven't achieved enough. But the movement is now really to be more, to work through education, to work through intimidation, to work through the unions, professional unions, to work through universities, to work through the media, to sue everybody who says anything about them. That's really where the operations have moved to, politicizing it much more. And the other means are there in order to facilitate all kinds of activities, and if necessary, they will do it. We know about training camps in Pennsylvania. We know about training camps in New York State. We know about training camp in Virginia. So it's quietly being, the police is going there and taking them, arresting some people, and that's it. But they are not identified as Muslims. So Muhammad bin Ahmed was arrested, but he's, he lives in, I don't know, in Allentown, Pennsylvania, whatever. They are not identified. Most of the, actually, when you read in the media...
Steve Emerson, he'll identify them. I'm just kidding.
Well,
it sounds,
you can identify them too, because...
It sounds insane. I mean, they're allowing this? Yes. This is sick.
You are not, this is a free country, and people are not identified by their race, or they knew that this will lead to Chavez sitting and doing everything, the similar things which happen in Venezuela will happen there. This is really not funny. I came to the United States from Israel. I may sound, I don't know, fanciful or something, but I came here because freedom has always been very important to me, personally, as a kid. And I wanted to be, and the United States is the only place in the world still, which is the freest place. You have more free speech, you have more free everything. You didn't live in many other countries, many of you. I don't know if you have, if you haven't, you didn't work in many countries. I visited many countries, I worked in many countries. And this is really the only country that is still free. And to me, to preserve the freedom of this country was very, very important. And I wanted to be here to make sure that it's funny, but this was really what I wanted to be here in order to see that it's doing well. Because I'm very concerned about what will happen to Israel. If America is gone, forget it. Freedom in the world will be gone. And I'm very concerned about what's happening now. So, but that's, I know, that's the truth, and this is why I came here now. It's important to protect the freedoms that you have. And I think that most Americans do not understand. They take it for granted, and they don't understand what they have. And if you don't know what you have, you don't know when you lose it. And actually, when you realize that you lost it, it will be too late. But this is true. And it is so... I remember coming back from England when I could travel to England. I cannot travel to England anymore because I will be seized by the police. But contempt of court and judgment against me.
You can't speak against Muslims in England.
No, I didn't speak against. No, I didn't speak against Muslims. I just objected to their jurisdiction over me. That's all. I said I'm an American citizen. We fought the British. We got our independence, 1776. I don't see any reason why British law. I should abide by British law. So the judge didn't like it, and the Saudi who sued me in England didn't like it either. So.
There is no free speech in England, yeah?
No, but there is not only that. I remember coming back because I worked a lot with the Serious Fraud Office, Metropolitan Police, Scotland Yard. And I know how they work, and I know how they investigate. And I remember coming back, I had a Pakistani cab driver coming back, it was before 9/11. And looking at the Twin Towers, there was beautiful full moon. And I was so happy to be back. And I said, it is so good to be back. This is a free country. And I just came from England and I saw some things there. And people think, oh, England, you go to the theater, it's very nice, everything is fine. No, it's not a free country. And neither are other countries. I'm receiving an award on next Saturday in Copenhagen from the Free Press, the International Free Press Association or Society. And they invited me to come and speak there. Now, I have a problem. They want me to speak about what happened with the lawsuit in England and what I'm doing now in order to see that Muslims cannot sue frivolously in this country. Now, but if I will say anything about Muslims, and it's a public event, they can somebody can go and bring the police to arrest me, because this will be considered a criminal offense. So I don't want to be arrested. I don't want to be arrested anywhere. So not in Denmark either. And I'm not exaggerating. It's happening. So what will I do? So I will go there and I will say, thank you very much for the award. We passed a law in the United States to even better protect the First Amendment. And but I really cannot talk about it, so if you should have similar laws, but if you want to read about it, read my book or read my website. So, yeah, what?
Except they were on Skype.
I suggested that, and they said they want me there, so I'm thinking. We cannot change the laws in other countries, although England is now going to change their law because of the law that passed in the United States. They have actually, for the first time in June, they are going to pass a law for new libel laws where truth will be a defense for the first time. Truth is not a defense in England.
Wow. Because they forbade that with Dear Wilders.
So, no, but they are changing because of me, because of the law that passed here. And the Saudis paid a lot of money to lobby against Rachel's law and to lobby against the law that passed, the Speech Act. Millions of dollars. Lobbying against what I try to do. So I'm glad they won. The Saudis. They had lobbyists, lawyers in Washington, holding seminars for the staff on the Hill, holding seminars for the staff in their offices, inviting speakers from the English bar, even to California, to argue against the passage of the law, going to Congress to lobby Congress. And they spent, I know how much they paid, I knew then how much they paid per hour. It was $5,000 per hour to lawyer. So it was not easy, but if you stand up, I think you can still do things, and that's why it's important to stand up.
And just to piggyback what you were saying, so it's not against the law for a Muslim in Copenhagen or in England. You see them standing at the park, putting down Jews and kill the Jews. That's not illegal, but it's illegal for
that's free speech.
But for you to say something about the Muslims That's not free speech.
Because the Jew, well, you know, in Europe they have hate laws in addition to very strange libel laws, okay? And the burden of the proof in libel outside the United States is on the defendant. So, to begin with, evidence from other countries is not submittable. Especially, well, depending on what, but it's usually not. And it's criminal offense. So, and what is the hate crime offense or libel? I can say that the sun is shining now, and I said it in Europe, and the Muslim will say, "Oh, this is terrible. I'm really offended by what you said," and he can go and file a complaint, and I can be brought to court.
Why do they have so much power, like the last 10 years? Why is that?
There is a lot of money involved. There is a lot of money involved, and Saudi money, huge amounts of Saudi money in America and here. A lot of money. The jihad, there are many ways. There are several ways to do jihad, and jihad by money is considered to be the highest in value. So sacrificing yourself, yeah, it's okay, but usually, you know, none of the leaders or it's the people who are being indoctrinated and trained to do that. One of the most estimable jihad is jihad by money. So, and they are using it now. This is my loss, my legal battles, and my effort to pass the law cost more than $2.5 million. I had very little support from anybody. So, you know, not many people are crazy enough to stand up. So, actually, the Danes who want to give me this award now came to see me after the Muhammad cartoons in New York. They came especially to see me and said, "Well, we really don't understand. So you had a judgment against you in England. So you have a judgment by default, and you never go to England. And nobody, if you didn't publish it, nobody would have known, because all the 45 others that the Saudi had sued and silenced, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the LA Times, everybody else, paid, retracted, and never wrote anything about them and never said anything about them. People didn't know. I made it public. I realized this was a strategy, this was a weapon. So you have a judgment default against you. So I explained to them what is the meaning of the First Amendment. They didn't get it, and they don't get it even today. Yeah. Yes. Thanks. Yes.
You said the goal of these Islamic radicals is to take over.
The goal.
My question is, you said the goal of the Islamic radicals is to take over the United States, not just do terror attacks. Is that coming from their own statements? Is that coming from documents?
Yeah. I'm writing a book, and I'm writing a new book, The Muslim Brotherhood, Inc. Well, I look mostly at their financial affairs, how they are funding themselves. But their statements go to, I can refer you to many of their leaders who say that. The target is to turn, first of all, to turn countries that were Muslims to proper Muslim countries according to their dogma, and which everything is run by Islamic law, and then to take over the world. That's their statements. If you go to the Muslim Brotherhood, and they are taking it, they are actually working faster than we thought. And they have prepared the whole infrastructure in order to do that. But I'm talking about it later today somewhere else. Yes.
To what extent is any of this drug influence in Israel?
Mhm.
Is there corruption along the same line actually in Israel?
According to which lines? I didn't hear the...
No, I'm sorry, just the influence of the drugs coming in.
No, well,
Does
Israel...
it extend also some of this into Israel, or is that...
Israel has some drug problems which they didn't have before because the Syrians tried to... But their security is pretty good. No, the corruption is Israeli politicians. I don't know, they raped one of their secretaries or something, but that's about it. But thank you very much.